As we begin, let us settle softly into the vastness of Middle-earth, a land shaped by forces older than memory, where power weaves through every stone, river, and whispering tree. To understand why one figure stands beyond even the darkest shadow, we first need to glimpse the nature of power itself, the subtle currents beneath the world's surface. Middle-earth is no simple stage of might and sword, but a complex interplay of light and shadow, order and entropy, wills both mortal and divine. Here, power does not only roar in armies, but hums in the very fabric of existence. It takes many forms: the dominion of kings, the enchantment of artifacts, the ancient spirits woven into soil and stone. Into this delicate balance steps Sauron, the Dark Lord. Once a Maya, a lesser divine spirit, he chose to wield his strength through control, forging the One Ring, a vessel to bind and corrupt the wills of others. His ambition threatens to unravel the harmony, casting a growing shadow that stretches across kingdoms and hearts alike. Yet, within this sprawling darkness, one name remains untouched by his grasp: Tom Bombadil. An enigma wrapped in song and old laughter, he dwells in a realm where even Sauron's shadow hesitates. Early whispers speak of his timelessness, his immunity to the ring's call, and his unique place outside the usual power struggles. Before we can understand why Sauron never challenged Bombadil directly, we must first consider: what is the true measure of power in Middle-earth? Is it dominion over others, or something deeper, quieter, a power that resists without striving, that exists beyond ambition? This question opens a door to realms unseen and forces uncounted, inviting us to look beyond shadow and light to the subtle dance that shapes the fate of all. We begin this chapter softly, recalling the shadow cast by Sauron and the looming question of why one figure, Tom Bombadil, remains untouched within the darkening world. As the previous chapter closed with wonder and mystery, we now step gently into the heart of that enigma, seeking to understand the nature of Bombadil's being, a presence unlike any other in Middle-earth. Tom Bombadil is a figure who defies easy explanation. He sings to the trees, laughs with the rivers, and walks the ancient woods as if time itself bends to his will. Yet he neither seeks power nor wields it in the usual sense. His immunity to the One Ring, the symbol of ultimate control and corruption, marks him as something utterly outside the world's contest for dominion. His origins are shrouded in mystery, as much a part of legend as of lore. Some say he is the spirit of the land itself, older than the mountains and the forests, embodying the very earth's soul. Others speculate he is a Maya, one of the lesser divine spirits like Sauron and Gandalf, but chose a path so different as to become a force of pure freedom and joy. Another possibility is that Bombadil is a remnant of an earlier age, a vestige of creation's first breath, unbound by the unfolding history of elves and men. Whatever his true nature, Bombadil's power rests not on force or dominion, but on harmony and presence. When Frodo and his companions first meet him, they experience an uncanny calm, a sense that here is a being utterly in tune with all things, neither master nor servant. This equilibrium is a key mechanism of his immunity. The ring, which bends wills and corrupts desires, has no hold over one who desires nothing and lives wholly in the present moment. Within Bombadil's domain, the old forest, ancient trees sway and murmur secrets only he seems to understand. His wife, Goldberry, the river daughter, complements this essence, a living symbol of nature's purity and vitality. Together, they form a duality of earth and water, timeless and renewing. Yet even within this serenity, subtle costs whisper beneath. Bombadil's detachment from the wider world means he neither intervenes in the growing darkness nor takes part in the grand struggles shaping Middle-earth's future. He exists almost as a parallel reality, a sanctuary, immune but distant, powerful but inert in the face of war. This duality raises profound questions. Can power that is utterly free also be impotent in the struggle? Is Bombadil's refusal to wield power a form of strength or a limit? What does his presence tell us about the nature of influence and resistance beyond mere force? These threads will grow in the coming chapters as we turn our attention to the other side of the great balance, Sauron's ambition and the reach of his shadow. Before we can grasp why Sauron never dared confront Bombadil, we must first understand the scope and limits of the Dark Lord's power. We begin this chapter by softly revisiting the mystery of Tom Bombadil's unique nature, his immunity, his harmony with the land, and his place beyond ordinary power. With that calm foundation, we now turn our gaze toward the opposite end of the spectrum. Sauron, the Dark Lord, whose ambition and dominion cast a vast and growing shadow over Middle-earth. Sauron was once a Maya, a divine spirit of considerable power, created to serve the cosmic order under the Valar. But his heart became ensnared by pride and desire for control, leading him to betray his purpose and seek dominion over the free peoples of Middle-earth. This transformation from servant to tyrant marks the first step in understanding his power and its reach. Central to Sauron's strength was the forging of the One Ring, a vessel containing much of his own essence. The ring was designed to rule and bind the wills of others, granting him a terrifying extension of his power. Through it, Sauron could corrupt kings, elves, and men alike, twisting their hearts toward his dark will. Yet this very act, the creation of the ring, sowed the seeds of his limitation. For by pouring so much of himself into this single object, Sauron bound his fate to it. The ring's loss or destruction would weaken or even destroy him. This cost, his dependence on a fragile external anchor, would haunt his long struggle. Sauron's dominion is thus marked by paradox. His power is immense, but it relies heavily on fear, deception, and the corruption of others. His influence extends through armies, alliances, and sorcery, yet it falters against forces that do not bend or can evade his control. This raises a crucial question. What are the boundaries of his reach? The answer lies not only in the tangible, armies and artifacts, but in subtler metaphysical laws. Sauron's power grows through domination and submission. Where will is free or absent of desire, his shadow cannot easily fall. His enemies understood this too. The wise and the wary know that to resist Sauron is not only to oppose his armies, but to hold fast to freedom and inner strength. This principle explains much about why he never attempted to wrest Bombadil's domain. Bombadil's power does not stem from will to dominate, but from a profound freedom and harmony that lies beyond Sauron's grasp. Sauron's blindness to such power is a form of limitation, a crack in his dominion that allows hope to survive. His inability or unwillingness to confront Bombadil directly hints at a recognition, perhaps unconscious, of forces beyond mere control. This recognition marks an essential part of Middle-earth's balance. For the world is shaped not only by those who seize power, but also by those who embody resistance through presence and refusal. As we proceed, we will explore how these different kinds of power, domination and harmony, interact and what costs each demands. Understanding these boundaries deepens our insight into the enigma of Bombadil and why Sauron's shadow stops short. Next, we will consider the contrast between old magic, primordial, rooted in the earth, and new power, forged by will and ambition, and how these forms delineate the limits of dominion. We begin by gently recalling Sauron's immense ambition and the paradox of his power, vast yet limited by the very nature of domination itself. Now, our journey turns to the ancient forces that shape Middle-earth's fabric, forces older and quieter than conquest, forces that set the true boundaries within which power can act. This chapter explores the distinction between what might be called old magic and new power. Old magic is primordial and rooted in the natural world, an enduring presence intertwined with the earth, the rivers, the trees, and the timeless rhythms of life. New power, by contrast, is forged by will, ambition, and control. It seeks to shape, bend, and command. Tom Bombadil exemplifies the former. His strength flows not from mastery or subjugation, but from harmony with the living world. His voice is the voice of the forest, his steps the pulse of the earth itself. His power is a song without end, a presence that neither conquers nor yields, but simply is. Sauron's dominion exemplifies the latter. Power through imposition, through fear, through binding the wills of others. His One Ring is the ultimate tool of new power, a crafted object designed to extend and enforce his will. Yet such power is inherently unstable, for it depends on the desires, fears, and weaknesses of those it would control. The boundaries between these two forms of power are not merely physical, but metaphysical. Old magic resists the grasp of new power because it does not rely on desire or ambition. It exists outside the cycle of dominance and submission that fuels Sauron's strength. This distinction explains much about why Sauron's shadow does not fall on Bombadil's realm. To dominate Bombadil, Sauron would need to impose his will on something that is free of will in the usual sense, free of hunger or fear. Such imposition would require a form of power unlike any he wields, something closer to creation than conquest. Moreover, old magic carries its own costs. It is often bound to place and time, limited in scope, though enduring in essence. Bombadil's power does not spread or conquer. It remains local, tied to the land and its own timeless cycles. This rootedness is both strength and limitation. The tension between old magic and new power plays out throughout Middle-earth's history. The rise and fall of kingdoms, the waning of elves, the spread of shadow. It is a quiet rhythm beneath the thunder of armies and the clash of swords, a reminder that some forces move beyond the reach of ambition. As we reflect on this, we find a motif emerging. True power is not always the power to change or conquer, but sometimes the power to endure, to be untouched, and to resist without struggle. We begin this chapter by gently recalling the subtle dance between old magic and new power, how harmony resists domination, how rootedness defies conquest. With this calm understanding, we now step into two of Middle-earth's most ancient and mysterious places, the Old Forest and the Barrow Downs, lands where Tom Bombadil's presence quietly holds sway. The Old Forest stretches like a living fortress of towering trees and tangled paths, a place where time seems to move differently. It is not simply wilderness, but a realm with its own will, a landscape breathing with old magic. Here, trees whisper secrets, branches twist to block unwelcome travelers, and the very soil hums with ancient memory. Bombadil is said to be the master of this forest, its guardian and friend. Unlike rulers who impose laws or enforce dominion through fear, he commands through song and presence. His laughter mingles with the rustling leaves, and his steps stir the roots to gentle obedience. The forest answers him not because it is bound, but because it chooses to align with his spirit. Nearby lie the Barrow Downs, low rolling hills haunted by eerie remnants of a forgotten age. These tombs and mounds conceal ancient kings and warriors, their spirits restless and bound to the land by sorrow and curse. Here, the shadows are thick with history and melancholy, yet even here, Bombadil's power brings protection and peace. The Barrow Wights, dark spirits bound to the will of malevolent forces, lurk in these hills, but their influence is held at bay by the strength of old magic and Bombadil's intervention. When Frodo and his companions fall prey to these shadows, it is Bombadil who rescues them, singing ancient songs that unravel spells and restore light. This episode illustrates the mechanisms by which Bombadil's power operates, through song, presence, and timeless authority. It is a power deeply connected to place and memory, not to willful domination or strategic conquest. His intervention is gentle yet firm, a restoring of balance rather than a conquest of will. Yet this protective power comes at a cost. Bombadil's realm is largely isolated, a sanctuary apart from the unfolding struggles beyond. His power does not, and perhaps cannot, extend beyond these borders. He neither pursues enemies nor offers aid to the wider conflicts that threaten Middle-earth. This withdrawal, this boundary, shapes much of the mystery around Bombadil. Is his choice to remain apart an act of wisdom, a refusal to be drawn into the world's turmoil? Or is it a limit of his nature, a price for his freedom and harmony? These questions deepen as we move forward to consider Bombadil's role in the grander narrative and the meaning of his freedom, power without ambition. We begin this chapter softly, recalling Bombadil's serene dominion over the old forest and Barrow Downs, a realm where power flows not from force, but from harmony. This sets the stage to explore one of the most profound facets of his nature: freedom without ambition, power that chooses not to grasp or command. In the wider world of Middle-earth, power often presents itself as desire in motion, an urge to shape, to conquer, to impose will upon others. From Sauron's relentless quest to dominate all living things, to the rise of mortal kings and ambitious sorcerers, power is tied closely to ambition, hunger, and the need for control. Bombadil stands apart. His freedom is absolute. He claims no land beyond his home, desires no influence beyond his borders. His strength is in his lack of desire, in the simple fact of being, unburdened by longing or fear. This absence of ambition creates a form of power unlike any other, a power immune to corruption because it has no craving. This freedom manifests as immunity to the ring's call. Where others hear temptation and whisper of control, Bombadil remains untouched. The ring is powerless to bind a will that does not seek to bind others. In this, his freedom becomes a shield, a quiet resistance. Yet this form of power carries its own costs and paradoxes. By refusing to act beyond his domain, Bombadil relinquishes any claim to shaping the broader fate of Middle-earth. He watches, He guards, but he does not intervene in the great struggles of good and evil. His power is a sanctuary, not a sword. This raises delicate questions about the nature of strength and responsibility. Is true power measured by the ability to influence the world, or by the capacity to remain free within it? Does freedom from ambition mean impotence in the face of evil, or does it offer a deeper form of resilience? The paradox deepens when we consider that Bombadil's refusal to wield power might itself be a deliberate choice, a form of wisdom that transcends the cycle of domination. In a world ravaged by hunger for control, perhaps power without ambition is the purest form of resistance. This idea echoes through the lore and the lives of other beings in Middle-earth who embody restraint. Elf lords who preserve rather than conquer. Wizards who counsel patience, and mortal heroes who sacrifice for a cause greater than themselves. As we continue, these reflections will help us understand why the Fellowship hesitated to entrust Bombadil with the ring, and what his presence means for the quest. Next, we will softly follow the Fellowship's encounter with Bombadil, and how this meeting deepens the mystery. We begin this chapter gently, recalling the serene freedom and unique power of Tom Bombadil, an embodiment of harmony, immunity, and freedom without ambition. With this foundation, we now step into the pivotal moment when the Fellowship of the Ring meets Bombadil, a meeting layered with quiet significance and unanswered questions. Frodo and his companions first encounter Bombadil as they journey eastward from the Shire, entering the shadowed realm of the Old Forest. The forest itself seems alive with quiet menace. Trees bend and block their path, the air thick with mystery and ancient magic. Yet from this tension emerges Bombadil, a figure of laughter, song, and light-hearted command over his domain. Bombadil's welcome is warm but enigmatic. He treats the Fellowship not as heroes burdened with fate, but as guests within his timeless realm. His power is palpable, yet it carries no urgency or ambition. The ring, a source of dread and corruption to others, is of no interest to him. He handles it with casual indifference, unaffected by its pull. This encounter brings forth a deep tension. The Fellowship sees in Bombadil a potential refuge, a sanctuary against the encroaching shadow. Yet the question arises, could Bombadil himself bear the ring's burden safely? His immunity to its corruption suggests yes, but deeper concerns follow. Gandalf and Elrond's reflections later reveal a layered understanding. Bombadil's power, while formidable within his borders, is bound to place and time. He shows no inclination to extend his influence or engage with the broader conflict. Entrusting the ring to Bombadil might safeguard it temporarily, but would not ensure it remains beyond evil's reach indefinitely. Moreover, Bombadil's detachment from the world's struggle means he might not resist temptation if it ever entangled him in unforeseen ways. His immunity is not dominion, but absence of desire. Without the will to wield the ring's power, he might inadvertently lose it or fail to protect against persistent threats. The Fellowship's passage through Bombadil's realm then becomes a moment of quiet respite rather than a turning point. It exemplifies the limits of power that does not seek to act and highlights the weight of choices faced by those who carry great burdens. This encounter also deepens the mystery of Bombadil himself. Why does such a powerful being remain apart? What does his indifference tell us about the nature of evil, power, and resistance? These questions linger, unanswered yet compelling. We begin this chapter by gently reflecting on the Fellowship's fleeting encounter with Tom Bombadil, a moment suspended between refuge and mystery. From there, our journey turns inward, toward understanding the nature of evil itself, its ambitions, and its boundaries. Sauron, the Dark Lord, is often seen as an unstoppable force, a shadow spreading relentlessly across Middle-earth. Yet even such profound darkness has limits. These limits do not arise from mere military setbacks or battlefield losses, but from deeper metaphysical and strategic constraints. One such constraint is the recognition of powers that exist beyond domination, forces immune to fear, corruption, or control. Bombadil's immunity to the ring is not a trivial quirk, but a symbol of such a limit. Evil, by its nature, thrives on submission and the bending of wills. It falters when confronted by those who exist outside the cycle of desire and domination. Sauron's refusal to directly challenge Bombadil can be seen as an acknowledgement, perhaps instinctive, of this boundary. Confronting Bombadil might mean risking more than a mere battle. It could threaten the fragile balance that even dark powers must respect. This notion of balance is central to the mythology of Middle-earth. The world is governed by laws both seen and unseen, by covenants older than the ages of elves and men. Even malevolent beings operate within these frameworks, constrained by fate, cosmic order, and the consequences of hubris. Darkness retreats not only in defeat, but sometimes in prudence, choosing to marshal strength for battles where victory is possible. This strategic withdrawal suggests a complexity often overlooked, the idea that evil, too, recognizes when power exceeds its grasp. Beyond strategic caution, there may also be a deeper cost to pressing against forces like Bombadil's. To challenge such a being might invite ruin or unraveling that imperils even the aggressor. In this light, Bombadil embodies a protective light, a sanctuary that darkness fears to violate. This dynamic offers a subtle but profound insight into power's nature. True strength includes knowing where not to strike, where to hold back, and where the reach of dominion ends. It also redefines the narrative of conflict. Not all victories come from conquest. Sometimes survival and resistance manifest in boundaries set by those who refuse to be overrun. As we continue, we will broaden our perspective to include other ancient and mysterious powers of Middle-earth, those whose roles and limits also shape the unfolding story. We begin this chapter softly by recalling the subtle power of boundaries, the places where darkness chooses retreat and forces like Tom Bombadil stand unchallenged. Building on this, we turn now to other, lesser-known figures in Middle-earth's vast tapestry, the Blue Wizards. Their story offers another lens on quiet resistance and the limits of power. Unlike the more famous Istari, Gandalf, Saruman, and Radagast, the Blue Wizards, Alatar and Palando, remain shadowed in mystery, their deeds scarcely recorded in the common tales. Yet hints in lore suggest their mission was one of subtle influence and containment, working in the east and south to slow or hinder the spread of Sauron's shadow, by different means than open warfare. These wizards embody a form of power distinct from outright dominion. Their resistance is not forged in grand battles, but through ritual, wisdom, and the weaving of subtle spells. Their work is a reminder that strength often lies in the unseen, the quiet, and the persistent, an echo of Bombadil's gentle yet firm hold on his domain. The Blue Wizard's efforts underscore a vital theme. Not all resistance takes the form of conquest or confrontation. Some power is about maintaining balance, sowing seeds of hope in dark places, and delaying the tide of corruption through perseverance. This raises important questions about the cost of such quiet guardianship. Like Bombadil, these figures operate at the edges, their impact significant yet often unnoticed. Their sacrifices and choices reflect the burdens of standing against overwhelming darkness without the glory of victory or the clarity of decisive battle. Moreover, their example illuminates the layered nature of power in Middle-earth. It is not merely about the might of armies or the forging of rings, but also about subtle acts of preservation, ritual, and wisdom carried out in the shadows. This chapter also plants a crucial breadcrumb: the notion that resistance to evil can be deeply humble, indirect, and patient. It hints at the broader cosmic and metaphysical forces at play, suggesting that the struggle between light and shadow is as much about endurance as about triumph. As we move forward, we will draw these threads together, examining how these various forms of power, domination, harmony, quiet resistance, converge in the climactic struggles of the age. We begin this chapter by gently recalling the quiet guardianship of the Blue Wizards and the subtle forces that shape resistance across Middle-earth. From these whispered acts of preservation, we now turn to a moment of dramatic crisis: the Siege of Gondor, a test of power in both its raw and refined forms. The city of Minas Tirith stands as a beacon against the growing shadow, a fortress steeped in history and hope. Its walls, ancient and imposing, guard not just stone and people, but the legacy of ages past and the fate of many yet to come. The siege that descends upon it is more than a battle. It is a convergence of wills, forces, and destinies. Sauron's armies, vast and relentless, press against the city's defenses with overwhelming might. Their power is brute force, driven by domination and fear, a physical embodiment of the Dark Lord's ambition. Yet within the walls, a different kind of strength holds sway, one of endurance, unity, and unyielding spirit. The defenders embody the best of Middle-earth's free peoples, humans, elves, dwarves, and men, joined by purpose and hope. Their power does not lie merely in arms, but in the bonds that tie them together, in their refusal to yield to despair. This unity is a form of resistance that challenges even the darkest of shadows. The siege reveals the limits of power on all sides. Sauron's forces, though vast, face logistical and strategic challenges. Their shadow cannot simply sweep away all resistance without cost. Meanwhile, the defenders must balance hope with realism, courage with caution. Amidst this turmoil, echoes of older powers persist: the memory of ancient magic, the legacy of past guardians, and the whispers of figures like Bombadil and the Blue Wizards remind us that history and myth weave through the present conflict. The Siege of Gondor, then, is not just a physical battle, but a metaphor for the broader struggle in Middle-earth. It illustrates how power tested in crisis reveals its true nature, its strengths, weaknesses, costs, and consequences. Here, the question of dominion versus harmony, of ambition versus endurance, plays out on a grand scale. The siege's outcome will shape the fate of kingdoms and the balance of shadow and light. As we reflect on this pivotal moment, we begin to see the strands of power converge. Ambition challenged by resilience, darkness tempered by steadfastness, and the quiet forces that resist even in the darkest hours. We begin this chapter by softly reflecting on the siege of Gondor, where raw ambition met steadfast endurance, and the fate of Middle-earth hung in delicate balance. From that crucible emerges a paradox central to understanding power in this world. True strength often lies not in conquest, but in restraint. Throughout our journey, we have encountered contrasting forms of power: Sauron's desire to dominate and control, Bombadil's serene freedom, the Blue Wizard's quiet guardianship, and the unified resistance of Gondor. Each embodies different facets of power, revealing its costs and limits. The paradox arises because power is often imagined as the ability to act, to command, to change. Yet in Middle-earth, some of the most profound power is found in the choice not to act, in the refusal to seize or control. This restraint requires immense inner strength, a freedom from desire that protects from corruption. Tom Bombadil exemplifies this paradox perfectly. His refusal to wield power or influence beyond his domain is not weakness, but a conscious strength. His immunity to the ring's lure stems from this detachment, a power rooted in being rather than doing. Similarly, the Blue Wizard's subtle resistance highlights the power of persistence without domination, of weaving quiet spells to maintain balance rather than enforcing rule. Their work, though obscure, is vital and enduring. Even the defenders of Gondor show this paradox. Their strength lies in their endurance, in their refusal to surrender hope despite overwhelming odds. It is a power born of humility and unity, not domination. This paradox challenges common narratives of power as domination and conquest. It invites us to see power as multifaceted, sometimes a sword, sometimes a shield, sometimes a silent song. Yet restraint is not without its costs. Choosing not to act can mean allowing suffering or danger to persist. It demands wisdom to discern when to hold back and when to engage. As we prepare to close this journey, this paradox offers a lens to understand why Sauron never challenged Bombadil directly. Not because Bombadil was weak, but because his power existed on a plane beyond conquest, a power that even great evil cannot easily confront. We begin this final chapter by gently recalling the paradox of power, that true strength often resides not in domination, but in freedom, restraint, and presence. As our journey through Middle-earth's shadows draws to a close, we reflect on the central mystery. Why did Sauron never challenge Tom Bombadil directly? Throughout our exploration, we have seen that power in Middle-earth is layered, complex, and often contradictory. Sauron's power is vast, but bound by the need to dominate and corrupt. Bombadil's power is quiet yet unassailable, rooted in timeless harmony and freedom beyond ambition. This contrast reveals a fundamental truth. Evil's power falters before that which it cannot consume or control. Bombadil's immunity to the ring and to domination places him beyond Sauron's reach, a beacon of resilience that no shadow can penetrate. Yet Bombadil's power is not about conquest or victory. It is about endurance and sanctuary, a reminder that some forces resist by simply being, by existing, beyond desire and fear. This resistance is not dramatic or loud, it is gentle, steady, and unyielding. It offers a lesson in the nature of power itself, that the most enduring strength may be found in presence and freedom rather than domination and force. As the great struggle of Middle-earth unfolds, Bombadil's role remains enigmatic but deeply meaningful. He is a symbol of a power that makes evil retreat, not by fighting it directly, but by existing beyond its grasp. Our reflections close on this note of calm maturity. The story of Bombadil invites us to reconsider what power means and where true strength lies. For those who listen closely, it whispers a truth as ancient as the world. Sometimes the greatest power is the power to remain untouched, free, and whole. As we part ways with Middle-earth's shadows, may this quiet understanding linger, a soft light in the darkness, a song of hope carried on the wind.